Welcome to another episode of the Bhandwagon podcast. And today is somebody who I actually wrote down on a list of mine when I first started this out. And I tell you why, because he was one of the first long interviewees that I ever listened to over the last sort of 5-6 years. And I remember a really detailed conversation and debate that I was having with my mate. And that was about where was BEE2 from? And because everything that I was seeing this guy, he said this guy is a Midlands boy. I could tell this the way he had his bar, everything was just. And then to my shock horror, he was from London, and so I followed his journey from there. And if you think you've made it, and you look on his timeline and you ain't on there, forget it. So that's all I'm gonna say. So welcome to BEE2. Thank you for coming on the Bhandwagon podcast.
How's it going, man? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I really appreciate the quick turnaround, man. The quick answer. It's a bit rare nowadays that I get a really fast response. So,
Oh, is it?
yeah, if you ain't got a blue tick, you ain't known, and I ain't got a blue tick yet. So,
Oh,
you get stuck in it. How's things been with you?
good, man. Good. We're really busy, just with shows and everything. So it's just been crazy at the moment. So we've got a big, busy summer coming up as well, and it's busy at the moment. So weddings are just every day and any day at the moment.
How do you get to balance your time out? Because I get tired looking at people's Instagram posts and stuff, and they're at this wedding and they're at that wedding, and DJs often get the brunt of it because they all look the same. So how do
Yeah.
you kind of make sure you kind of balance out that family time, your business time, and your work?
Yeah, I mean, well, this is my work. So the shows, this is my business. This is my work. This is my what brings the bread on the table, as you say.
Mm.
So I do obviously. It's sometimes with school holidays and holiday times, it's hard to sort of get out on holidays as such, because obviously at those times when everyone's off, it's my busiest times. The time that I'm busy. That's where I'm working. That's the key time for myself. That's when the season is in its peak. So that is sometimes hard. So we obviously have to balance our holidays, our family sort of time around that. But besides that, everything else, is good because obviously I'm self-employed, as in like the studio wise, so it's not like I have to go out and do a certain job. This is my job and this is my profession, so I can sort of manage my time quite easily in that sort of sense.
Your one of the interview that I'm referring to, you talked about actually about where you went to India to go and learn the art of singing and Punjabi folk, especially. And there was I remember you put up a post of that, and I actually just had to follow you again. I don't know what's happened there on Insta, but I remember seeing a post where you said from 1992 to where you are now. What was your journey to the stage like, especially as a young singer?
I mean, first I started on a very young age. I started with the Great Indian Dancers as a singer and Tumbi player, and they really guided me. Like before, it was just like, oh, I like singing and I like sort of playing the Tumbi, but it was just self-taught,
Mm.
right? And the Great Indian Dancers, they said, look, you've got a talent for this. You've got a knack for it as a natural. Like you've picked this up quite naturally. That you should, learn properly and get taught by a Ustaad. So they guided me and they took me to my first Ustaad, who was Ajit Singh Desi, who was also in Southall. I was from Southall at that time, and he was a classical trained, musician, and he taught me about rags and how to sort of get into scales and things like that. And he taught me a lot about that. And then obviously my passion was with the Tumbi. So I did play the Tumbi before, like I was still playing the Tumbi at that time. But then I went to India to learn from my Ustadi, who then taught me the style of Tumbi that I play now, which is the
So
Suramali Tumbi.
okay, so what's the so you mentioned a few things here. One where the modern day producers don't necessarily know about rag and scales and so forth. But then you've also kind of narrowed that down into the style of Tumbi. Like my only little claim to fame was my granddad actually had a Tumbi given to bought from Yamlajat back in
Oh
the day.
wow.
Yeah, yeah. But as kids we broke it, so I can't say anything. Yeah. As you do in it, as you do. He couldn't play. but you know, as you do, you just kind of you kind of pick up a bit. I can't do anything now. I've got some made by Runner. He's made me a custom one. But just going back for a second there, where can you explain the differentiations between like the how scale and rag affects the tumbi?
Well, if you understand rags and scales, right,
Yeah.
then you'll the tumbi, like people think that, oh, the tumbi is just a 2/3 notation kind of instrument, very simple, very sort of standard instrument. But as we've shown, you know, there's a lot more that we can do with the tumbi, as I do on my Instagram page, and you've seen on my YouTube stuff and all that. So not only playing to Punjabi folk stuff, music, but also playing to contemporary pop, grime, whatever you want to call it, R&B, hip hop sort of style of songs as well. Once you understand where your placement of the key is of the song, like the tonic key, the what scale is going, if it's a major, minor scale, when you get into that kind of depth of music, then it's very easy to sort of strip down a song and understand it, and sort of understand where, what notation is being used, and what kind of what vibe is on, what kind of mood it's got, what is setting. It comes very easily. But that I only learned from learning classical. So I wouldn't say I'm a classically trained musician, because obviously when you're talking about classical, then you're going into depth of classical music is very deep. So I would say I'm semi classical trained, right? So,
Okay.
but I do understand rags, and I've done a lot of work with rags, because I've done a lot of recording. I used to work for Kuljit Bhamras, who's a music producer. That's where I started off, and I spent quite a few years with him in his studio, Red Fort Studio in Southall. And we used to do a lot of emotional music, and Gawali and things like that. So I had to have a certain understanding of what, even as a recording artist, you need to understand and guide the musicians and the people that are in the studio as well. So you need to understand if something's not sounding right, if something's a bit out of key. Sometimes when these musicians are so engrossed in what they're doing and they're in the zone, sometimes things go a little bit out of key and things like that. So you have to understand that, what kind of rag, what scales they are playing in. So sometimes, even when I never used to understand the rag, if I didn't know the rag, I used to actually ask them. I say, right, can you tell me the notation of this rag, so I can keep an eye out for what's going on, so make sure that no one goes out of key or things like that. So once they should tell me the notation, then I would understand what rags they're going to be playing, or what scales they're going to be on.
I've got two kind of different ways that I want to take the conversation. I'll start with one and then I'll get to the other bit. Your Tumbi is very modified in that way. Is that kind of bespoke done where you've put all those extra parts on it, or is that something that is kind of fairly commonly you can buy?
No, you can't commonly buy this. So basically, my Ustaad Harjan Singh Jangpuri, he's the one that created this style of Tumbi. So when he created it, obviously he taught me, and while I was learning, I didn't have the permission to play this live at that time for quite a few years, right? So I was still learning until I got to a certain stage. He gave me the permission to start, that now I can start performing with this Tumbi. This was at a young age. And then when I started performing this Tumbi, then I started, obviously, because I was still learning about rags as well at the same time. I was still going through that training of semi-classical training. Then I expanded on this Tumbi, the one that he gave me, and I sort of, put more keys on there. I'm the first person to actually had mic'd up the Tumbi in a certain way that I could play live on stage against like dhol players and things like that. Because that was one massive fallback I used to have when I first started playing the Tumbi with the great Indian dancers, especially, is that we used to have two big drummers. Like, their drums were massive. These are not the type of drums that the dhools that you would hear today. These were traditional drums. They were really, really big, and they were really loud. And I'll have two of these dhol players on both sides of me, Gavi Buddy and Binda Buddy on one side, and they would just be beating this dhol, and I'll be just with one single mic with my Tumbi. And you can imagine the clash that, I could, if they raised my mic up, you start getting feedback, and the instrument's so small, and if I played it too hard, I'd break the string. So I was going through these complications. And then when I went to university, I was studying sound engineering and music technology at university in Guildhall. And that university, London Guildhall University in Aldgate, on every floor, there was about 6 floors, and every floor there was like different segments of music sort of courses going on. So I was obviously on the technology side of things, where I was learning about the studio and frequencies and that. But on the floor beneath me was the violin makers, right? This was very
Yeah.
interesting. The violin makers, and I used to, in my break times, I used to go down to the violin makers and see how they make their instruments, and it was amazing. The art of violin making is something like mind blowing. I'll tell you, seriously. They would have to learn and train how to make the tools first before they ever made the violin. So I used to sit down with them and talk to them about how they're making their violins, what kind of texture they're using, how to mic it up. And this is where I got the idea of miking my tumbi up. And like before, I had certain mics on there, but they weren't perfect. Then they sort of told me the art of, look, this is the frequencies that you need to cut out. These are the ones that need to come in. And this is how we do it with the violin. Then I adapted that to the tumbi. And obviously, I had some help from my one of my lecturers there as well, who was quite advanced in this kind of stuff as well. One of my lecturers, and he actually, we made a certain component to go into the tumbi to make, amplify it enough so it won't have no feedback, but at the same time will give the right sort of gain.
Yeah, because that's mad. Like the mic boom. When I used to play dhol as in dhol blasters as a youngster, and I used to know the difference in terms of, like, we had ambala dhol, which was a bit lighter but louder. Then you
Yeah,
have a dalia, which was heavier, and when you're growing, it used to cane your neck. And
that's right.
but then the other bit was when Gurtan started. Gurtan Mal was about selling doors with mics, and they're already kind of
Yes,
preloaded, and the weight that used to add on it. And then the difference in terms of a sonic, in terms of the sound of when it with a mic in and out used to vary as well. So to get that right,
that's
all
right.
these little things where people don't necessarily kind of take in consideration. Now, when you looking at a tumbi, is there a particular kind of wood that you favor than another type?
Obviously, now, I mean, I've gone into quite a lot of depth with the tumbi now, so I have different tumbis, different materials, different sizes and etc. for different things that I'm going to use it for. For example, in the studio, I'll use more of a pumpkin, which we call a gaddu type of tumbi. On certain keys, to go on a higher pitch, I'll go into a different thing called a bell type of tumbi, which will give me a higher note. And then I've got for my live stuff, when I'm performing live, I prefer to use a more of a nariyal type of tumbi or something like that, because it's more dense. It's not letting any frequencies come in, bounce back in. So I use different sort of different tumbis, different things for different applications now.
Mm-mm. So your journey with the tumbi. This is even before you started singing, is that right?
That's right. Yeah. First, I started playing the tumbi first.
Yeah. So I don't need normally, especially I learned this with the Butta Jagpal podcast that I did, was when I think that people where they started their musical careers and the albums that they released, there's always a 2 or 3 that I've always missed out. So I always let the guest kind of narrate the story in terms of what was your first move from the Tumbi to start singing, in terms of up to the point of releasing your first kind of single album.
Well, it was like a natural progression. When I was performing so much with the great Indian dancers, even they said to me that, look, you should do an album, and I wanted to do an album as well. I was thinking, let me try making an album, and I was working at Kuljit Bhamras studio. We did a full album on reel to reel, so this was all acoustic, right? So there was no digital format in this album, and it took a bit of time to create this album because it was all live. And then after that, then we were about to release it, but um, then a sound came out, a certain sound came. I think it was B21 sort of had that sound at that sort of time. It was a very digital sort of sound started coming out. And that album wouldn't have worked, and it wouldn't have sort of been the right sort of album at that time because it was more acoustic. So then we sort of scrapped that album altogether. And then we went totally digital, and then we sort of had to buy all the computers in to redo the album because that sound had just changed overnight. That's the thing with the music industry. Sounds change overnight. something like
especially someone like the Tumbi, because that interesting you mentioned that because one of my favorite Tumbi pieces is actually on Put Sardarande with the Def Jam. I always
yes,
love that, and I feel like I value that more emotionally when I feel it than, let's say, Munde Anta Pachke, which is
yeah,
at that bit. But like the sound of that, even when Live and Direct came out with Bali Jagpal doing Nakareb and somebody, the Tumbi on that was kind of distinct as well. Did
yeah.
you kind of, I don't know whether I'm putting words in your mouth here, but was there a sense of frustration that you're like, I can do all of this and stuff, and I'm not, I want to quickly jump on it and kind of release the thing?
No, no, it wasn't like that. No, it was. I mean, I could hear it. I could, there was things I was already performing quite a lot
Yeah,
at that time
okay.
anyway. So I didn't have that urge that I need to do it right now. Or try to, it wasn't like that. It was a sort of smooth sort of transition, as in like what I wanted to do, and because I was going into the studio sort of arts as well, and I was going to and I already had been trained about from that at that time in semi-classical, and I understood music quite a bit at
Mm.
quite a young age. So it was a good sort of transition going into that. But yeah, I mean, I used to hear all of those songs and they were great. I mean, like you said, the ones that you were saying, and I mean, my favorite from those sort of times was on that Otina Otina. Remember the Tumbi piece that came in
Yeah,
the
with Premi and stuff, yeah.
me? Yeah, that used to be like, I used to always replay that, and it was like
Mm.
that one used to be like, wow, this is amazing. The sound on that was just crazy.
So did you come from a musical kind of background? Because like your brother is super talented as well, like give him a big massive shout out. But like, how did that influence? How did you kind of get into music? Was it just something that you kind of developed, or was it kind of already in the
Yeah,
family?
I mean, it wasn't like it wasn't in our family as in such, but it was like my uncles and all that. There was my dad's mama. He was quite a good writer. Um, he was like an old school writer. He used to write with Dev Three Kamala. They used to be like teachers at the same place, one of these colleges in Ludhiana, and they were from Jagaon sort of side. And he was quite into this as well, and he used to play the tumbi as well. So then my dad's cousin brothers, they sort of like always were into that as well, but they never done it as in a profession, as in how I do it now. There was just like it was like more or less their hobbies. So growing up listening to them, like whenever there was a family function or anything like that, they would always be, the tumbi would come out and they would be performing. So that's where I saw it first. But at that time when I saw it, nobody knew about the tumbi in this country. Like, well, it was amazing because I even used to go to Bina Musical and things like that. They were like the oldest sort of musical shop in Southall, and
Mm.
even they didn't know what tumbi was. I used to say, "Yeah, I don't want a tumbi." They go, "What is that? Like, what does it look like?" And then even that's how far back. Even they didn't know. Like, they used to be into classical music instruments. They didn't know about the tumbi. They didn't even used to sell them, and then they bought some in, and then that's where I bought my first tumbi from.
So then, when you got into kind of more vocals and stuff like that, did you have a separate ustad for that in terms of where you were learning from?
Yeah, so the star that I had for my singing was a Ajit Singh Desi. So he was another guy from Southall,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he's the one that was teaching me on how rags and scales and all that work,
You
as in on a singing sort of thing. On a
you were
singing.
talking about studio and stuff like that. Did you already have it in the back of your mind that you wanted to build a kind of a studio and have everything in house at at that stage?
No, when I started singing, I mean, it all sort of progressed from it was all finance based, right? So when I want to get an album done or want to get a couple of tracks on, I sort of looked around and it was too expensive, to hire out studios and things like that. So then I started working at a studio at Kuljit Bhamras studio. That's where I was getting trained. I did my album there. Then from there, then it was just natural to go into start the sound pipe. And from the sound pipe, from the studio, we now we have three studios: the record label and the music video side of things, the company. So it just grew from that, from the singing for my own and making my own music. Then having people come to me and start saying, "Oh yeah, can you make our music as
Yeah.
well? We heard that you made your album. We heard your album. It was great. We want to. Can you make our music?" From there, it just started spiraling, and then we were doing so much music for other artists, and then we obviously launched the label because we had so many people coming through the studio. We thought it's just natural to get them. We can give them the whole package, get them the release, make them their video, get them get the music done, get the lyrics done. So it was just like a one-stop shop.
But those who obviously kind of some people kind of listen to the podcast, they try and gauge where the scene is based on the peers and the kind of time frame that you're talking about. When you were doing your first album, who were the peers and what was the kind of the years that you were working on that, or
I mean, when I did my first album, the people that, I mean, PMC was out. You know, PMC had his stuff out. Zeus was doing his thing. B21 just had started. You know, obviously Bhutta and all that. And Jagpal, Bhutta actually.
You're talking late 90s, early 2000s, maybe.
No, yeah, late 90s. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so going into yeah.
Going to 2000. Yeah.
I got you.
So that's the sort of time when I was like planning and making my album.
Because
my first album actually came on. I can't remember what. Like the frustrating thing was that my first album, it was called Recorded Delivery, and it came out on the day when the bloody 9/11 happened. So we were launching the album, and bloody that catastrophe happened in the world, and you know everybody's attention was on that. So it was just like, oh my god, it was just shambles.
Because I was the way that one of the things that I always kind of when I look back is it's been around innovation, and you know where you were talking about how like you've moved from kind of Jazzy actually said this as well, where he went from kind of vinyl, cassette to CD, MP3, all the and that's kind of mirrored you as well in terms of your kind of releases and stuff and that. Yeah. How you gave a slight insight it. How did you have to kind of adapt that technology for your production as well? Because that's not only as a singer that you do, then you got technology moving along, and you got double the costs as it's constantly going.
I mean, but yeah, I mean, we even pressed vinyls for my first album, and the first album was on, then came out on cassette and CD. And you know, in between that, there was other little MP3s and other little formats that were coming out. Not MP3, sorry. There was another format, a small sort of format.
Yeah, you had mini disc. You had
mini disc and things like that. Yeah.
But then also the one that I think kind of killed us as well, saying that was obviously piracy was kicked in as well. Then
piracy was massive at that time. Yeah. I mean, before this online platform launched, you know, the piracy was really, really big. So, you know, we were releasing cassettes and CDs, and you would just have pirate copies everywhere. You know, it was just it was a nightmare, especially when at that time I was launching the label as well.
Okay. So how did you have to adapt? Like, did you have any way of trying to kind of like combating it as well at the same time? Because I've spoken to a lot of artists and stuff, and they've said that some of the biggest people who were kind of were sending the music out with some of their best mates. You know, like they got it the first copy, press it, sending them out, or you go to a record label. I remember going into Envy once, and then I said, "Oh, was it Envy? No, I ain't gonna drop them in there." It was a record label shop. Walked in, said, "Oh, if you got this one, it'll cost you X amount. If you want a pirate version, it's this amount." And I was like, It didn't make sense to me.
Yeah. That was happening a lot. It was happening a lot, and you know, we were from South, so we had to, you know, keep an eye, and that was a big hub as well. Like, you know, you have a South, or then you got obviously Birmingham, the sort of side. You got East London, all that sort of side. So there was a certain where our communities are sort of, you know, where we have our music is sort of sold the most. You know, those places they had a lot of piracy going on, and we always had to go and check up and, you know, make sure and report it and sort of try to, you know, and we used to just pick up the pirate CDs and just walk off. You know what I mean? Because it was our music. They were just cutting us, you know, cutting our knees, man, with all of this piracy that was going on. Yeah. And it was hard at that time.
And it used to stifle quite a lot of new talent, and I always kind of blame that, because there was always a lull, wasn't there, after a little bit in the UK where it really dropped off, because I think there was no money to be made at that bit.
Yeah.
Sorry, when you look, oh, got something bloody high. At first, I wore glasses properly for a whole podcast, and so I was it was bad. When you're looking back at your career and your early section of your career, I'll call it indifferent, because this one, what you're in now, is evergreen. I'm just going to call it evergreen. Your first kind of period on it, what was the pivotal point where you thought, hang on, I'm catching wind here. There's something that I'm doing that is actually there's a fan base growing, there's a sound that I've got, because I always remember you guys had a particular sound, which was good. Like, how did you know that was that you got there?
I think, you know what, with our thing, to be honest, it was more on the performance that caught people's eye more than I think the music maybe. I mean, you know, the first kind of tracks that started really circulating was like Majajane, Babave, you know, Rana Botal Vargi.
See,
Or
Ran Botal Wargi, I was at that. That for me, kind of, I was into that folk heavy. So when I saw you coming out with, and you guys were releasing this stuff, I was like, this is it, man. And then I think when you guys dropped Banduk, you know, the Kaka version, the dhol version, that bit, to this day, I still play that track. Like, I was like in my car, like I'm not no DJ, but when I hear that, I was like, I love that. And you guys that's what I always thought. These lot are Midlanders, man. These guys are
You know what? And the funny thing is, just you saying that is like 99% of our shows are in the Midlands.
Yeah.
You know, that's where we mostly perform. But at that time, it was like 100%, you know, those sort of times. So, I mean, the music sort of brought us, introduced us to the circuit, to the wedding circuit, to the gig circuit, to the Milla circuit. But once we were in there, you know, what was selling us was our performance. That's what people enjoyed. And until now, that's what people are booking me for, and what want to get me is before the energy that I bring to the show, to the my presence, my you know, the attitude that I come with. You know, that is what people like more than now the music. You know what I'm saying? They always say, like, you know, they go, like you did at the other party that we had in our family, you know, do that, do this. And so it's a performance that is more sort of kept me going.
Yeah, because I'll give you the innovation bit. The only bit where I thought these like did a clever and they were right was, I think, you can shoot me down if I'm wrong with this, yeah. So I'll put my hat. Brit Asia started doing the live sessions, and I think you guys were one of the first ones that had it kind of pre-recorded and done like.
Yes.
You already had it out in it.
Yeah.
Because
that's right.
Yeah, because there was a technique. I go, this ain't a live session, man. This is all pre-recorded.
Yeah. No, because we actually, even the live sessions at that concept, we were doing that before. Before British Asia was even British Asia, right? Before that, we used to do like live sort of skits and things like that from the studio, for YouTube and things like that. But those ones, the ones that you were talking about, the ones that you're talking about, yeah, we had pre-recorded that because we didn't have the technology, as in like the amps and all that, to actually mic everybody out.
Yeah.
So we would just go in the studio, we would record everything one by one, you know, with everyone sort of playing it, and then we would just play it back. And just like, you know.
Yeah. Going back to the kind of the word of the moment in the podcast is around innovation. That your videos was always kind of separate. I think the only kind of other person, there's always a few artists who always come up with newer concepts, but your videos always used to be fairly unique in it. How did you try and keep on top of that to make sure that your last video, because that's another pressure that you're adding on, because if you're known for doing good videos and you got to keep producing good videos.
No, thank you for that. I'm glad that I'm glad that you touched on that point, actually, because that was a really important sort of part of our career as well, and is really important to us. Because I mean, I always used to feel that people weren't appreciating the videos that we made, you know, because it was so different. You know, they were just wanted the girls and the cars and that same sort of thing, and we were doing totally different videos at that time. You know, we had little storylines going on there. Because I enjoyed that, and hence what I'm doing today. I'm making a movie today now. You know, that is what I'm in currently, because that was I enjoyed that. I like the visual going with the music, and I'm not going to mention the name, but there was a music video producer in India when we were releasing Ran Botal Vargi, right? And I sat there and I said, look, guys, we were going to give it to somebody else to make that video because we thought this track's going to be big, right? We need to do something great. And, you know, we were talking about it. I said, listen, I don't want the same old, you know, girls, this, that, car. And he goes, mate, you can't make a video without girls and this and that. You can't do it. I said, is it? I said, in that case, you move aside. Let me make my own video. Whether it's good or bad, I'm going to make the video for this. Yeah. So we made the video. We had no models in it. We had no, like, you know, that kind of concept in there. And that video was brilliant. And that was great. It was #1 song in India for like God knows how long.
I remember, was it the Usain Bolt with the you're doing the Usain Bolt kind of celebration one of your video? I remember that one very
Yeah,
distinctly and stuff from that.
that was Lambi Wah Karke, big, we called it. Yeah.
That's it. That's it. So like, in terms of when you I know you're spinning a lot of plates at this moment, so you've got your. I'm getting into kind of the movie, kind of the acting stuff and that. But like, did you get a point of frustration when you were looking at when you're looking on your career where, okay, let's put the weddings and the roti aside, that's earning and you're doing all of that. But as an artist that you're looking around in terms of what's going on in the actual scene, like did it start to become stale for you? Did you ever think like, oh, I can't be asked to do this, I just want to stay into kind of production? Because you, again, I mentioned your timeline, and especially on Insta and stuff, like you're one of the rare ones who've actually had like Gurdas in a studio and you've worked with him consistently. Well, I'll say consistently or periodically. Like, do you think you get enough credit for that side of stuff as well or not?
Not really. I mean, you know what that is, when you're sort of trying to juggle everything around, you're not like, I don't really promote that sort of side of things, like, the studio
Why
side.
not? Why not?
Just I don't know, really. I mean, that's a good question. I never really thought about it. I mean, people come to the studio even now, like great big names are always coming in and out of the studio recording stuff. I don't really promote that kind of stuff. I don't really know why. I mean, it's just like, for some reason, I don't know, it just feels normal to me. I mean, I don't really feel like I need to sort of promote it. I mean, it's always been there. But the studio sort of stuff is, it's really been a lifeline for me. As in, if I was just a singer, I won't be here. I wouldn't have been here today. So that studio, sort of people coming in the studio, recording stuff, they kept the momentum going. And they paid the bills, and then I'll make enough money to make my own album, and then we'll make enough money to make my own music videos. So that was a good thing about that sort of time. But what was the other thing that you said as well? There was sort of thing that you just mentioned. I want to.
Oh, about being stale, like what the scene was being stale. Did you get
Oh, the
frustrated as an
scene was being
artist?
stale. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure what you mean by that, but there was a time.
That's the time
where,
that I'm talking about, probably around about 2013 to 15 to 16, maybe in that
yeah.
area where like
What was frustrating? I'll tell you at that time. What nearly actually threw me off. Like, and I thought, you know what, I don't want to be a part of this. Like, it wasn't the the industry as such, and it wasn't us making the music. It wasn't us creating new material. It was getting it out there, right? So the frustration was getting the record label, first of all, right? That was, by the time you would get a record label, your music's out of date already. That's what I was getting. One thing that was very frustrating. Second thing was then getting onto the platforms, right? For like these media platforms, the radio stations, the TV stations. That was the biggest nightmare because they had a monopoly on this, right? So they would pull the strings and they would say, right, okay, this person's playing this week, this person that, and if your music wasn't played, it wasn't reaching out to the audience. You wasn't getting that airplay. And what the best thing about now today's time is, right, which is absolutely brilliant for new artists, and this is what I always say, now is the best time, and it's so easy to get your music out because you are going to create your own audience. Now you create your own audience. Now you don't need to worry about TV stations. You don't need to worry about radio stations. You don't need to worry about websites or interviews and things like that. You don't need to worry. You create your own audience. You create your own platforms. And that's where people connect with you, and that's where people understand you, and they follow you, and that's how you build your audience now. And that is the best thing about today's time compared to the time that we were trying to release music.
is it a bit of a double-edged sword in terms of like, yeah, it's easy access to do it. I mean, I'm a hypocrite for this because obviously I'm doing this myself as my owner, but I don't give a fuck about my audience in a sense. I'm not there for money. I'm doing it out of my own curiosity and people that want. Like the double-edged sword where you've got it's easy access to release it, but the amount of crap that's being released as well at the same time, it can oversaturate a market. I think at least before, I don't agree it was right, but at least there was people who couldn't get onto the scene, and it would automatically double think: do I want to
No, but the problem is that the thing is, yeah, you're saying there's a lot of crap coming out. I agree with you. But the thing is, when they were doing it, when the TV stations, the radio stations had control, they were putting more crap out there, and they were letting the talented people. They wouldn't see that, oh, this guy's got talent, and there's something about this. Let's put, or this guy's doing X, Y, and Z. They deserve to be on there. Now they would just put the crap out, because if they either got paid more, right? That's a real reason. The ones that would bring the crap out would be just paying more. But now people make their own choice. The audience isn't stupid. The audience can see what crap is and what good music or what talent is and what non-talent is. So, it doesn't matter if there's 10,000 people out there doing the same sort of thing, but are crap, because the audience won't follow them. You can see it from their followership. But where they see the talent and where they appreciate what's going on, they will follow that. So it's the audience's choice, and his audience is always right.
You're one of the few kind of exported products that you got from the UK who's actually successful in India as well, and which may not get people aware of, or probably will be aware of. How did you have to adapt your sound? Because I remember listening to you did a 2017 interview, and in there you were talking about how engineers in the UK are different, and how in Mumbai and in Delhi and Punjab they're all different as well. But if you're coming up with a product, which side do you balance off? Because if we just kind of agreed to a point that in the UK it was a little bit stale and it was a frustrating time, then you just cater to just the India, you get diluted in your kind of sound, and then you lose your own kind of vision in terms of what you're doing. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, at that time it was. Now it's not, sort of thing. Now the sound over there is so. I mean, that is the sound that's working now, right? At that time when we were there, when we did Run Bottle, and I did Jatta Kistiyari album and Baba Ve and all that. Those were the 2-3 albums that we done at that time. I was doing a lot of shows in Punjab at that time, and at that time, what was the hit and what was the sound was like Manmohan Waris, Harpajan Man. That was the sound at that time. So my sound was a little bit different, but it was good in the sense that I was still getting shows there, and but like you said, the technology and the sound was different. At that time, they were more releasing on it was like ADATs and things like that. Over here, the sound was different. They were all had gone digital at that time. Right, but now obviously the technology is like, even I would say they've even got even more superior and advanced technology in India now, and the sound that they're producing is absolutely amazing, and that is the sound now. So at that time it was kind of hard, because sometimes you think, shit, shall I cater to that or shall I cater to this? The sound over here and over there were totally different. It's two complete different things.
Did you feel? Can't really frame this in a time frame if I'm being honest. Do you feel like the rest of the kind of industry was giving you respect in terms of like how you are moving on and you're working in different kind of markets? Because not everybody can do that, and as we know, this industry, the entertainment industry, I'll call it the media industry now, because an artist has to be a content creator, has to do that, brings a lot of negative energy and stuff like that. How did you kind of cope with that?
I mean, look, things are always gonna, negative energy and things like that. That's always gonna be there. This is one of the reasons that I really try to keep myself to myself, in that sense, that I never sort of get involved into a group of people or a group of singers or a group of producers or a certain clique.
But who taught you that? Because like you've had like the greats around you. Is that something that they've told you? Was it a particular person who told you?
It's being around the people like Gurdas Man. It's being around people like Kuljit Bhamras. Kuljit Bhamras taught me a lot of things. The music producer Kuljit Bhamras, I'm talking about, the one that done Rail Gaddi, the one that done, Jagwala Mela album for Hira.
Another person who doesn't get a lot of credit at all, not very commonly known.
Yeah, that's right. And he was, at that time, obviously we grew up listening to his music. You would know about his music, and now maybe people don't know much about him, but he is like one of the legends. There was only two main producers at that time, Deepak Kajanchi and Kuljit Bhamras, and learning from him. And he, I learned a lot from sitting with people like that. You know, people like, you know, good last one, people like Kuljit Bhamras, people like, you know, the seniors, you know, and you see how they sort of, you know, how they manage work, how they manage people, how they manage the public, how they manage their clients. You know, so that, you know, and I sort of learned that, look, I don't need to be involved in something because I've got talent myself. I understand this myself. I don't need anything from anybody else in that sense. Like, I don't need to be involved in like a whole lot of singers or a whole lot of producers because, you know, I don't really need anything from them. You know, and there was people that made this clip because they think, oh, I need this producer, I need him to do something for me, so I need to be with him. You know, or I need this singer, I'm a producer, I need these singers, you know, because they need to sing for me, otherwise I'm not going to be anything. You know, so we never sort of had that issue. And like I said, you know, I've always like being in my own space, in my own, you know, I don't want, you know, people telling me about their problems and this and that, and, you know, getting me involved in their bullshit. You know, I'm very sort of straightforward. Keep it, you know, keep it real. Keep work to work. Come, they used to come to the studio, do your thing, and go. You know what I mean? I don't want to sit with you and have a pint. I don't want to sit with you and socialize. You know, when it's work, and when it's my time to socialize, like that is my time to socialize. And I'm very sort of picky of who I'm going to sit with and be with.
Uh, Brilliant. I mean, like, it's, you know, when you look at what's your opinion of the market and the situation now?
The market is great. It's brilliant. I mean, the things that are going on, like, like you got the Canada thing happening, you got the India thing. I mean, the India is where is really happening at the moment, as in the scale of where the music industry has gone, the Punjabi music industry has gone is absolutely amazing because they have loyal fan base, right? And this is what I always used to say. You know, people used to say to me, "Oh, you know, what's India and what the scene sort of thing." Like, if you think about Punjabi music in Punjab or wherever we talk about, that is mainstream, right? So now, what I feel, right, in the UK sort of scene, the youngsters that because it always depends on these youngsters, right? It always depends on the uni crowd, on these people. That is the audience, right? So they love the music when they're sort of playing it in like in the weddings and things like that. But the thing, when you ask them, they say, "Yeah, we're into grime, or we're into this, or we're into that." It's not really we're into Punjabi Bhangra. You know, we're not really into it, sort of thing.
You know, you raised something, and I was smiling as you said it because I had this debate where I said exactly that. Where in India you've got a loyal fan base, right? You got the diehards. You could put out absolute rubbish and they'll still support you, right?
They'll buy
Yeah.
it.
In Canada, it's a little bit looser than that, but yeah, they're fine. They're still classed as fan. But I feel in the UK, there's no fans anymore. They're customers.
Nah, that's right.
And because you can't, the fan loyalty now is that they don't care how hard you've worked on it. They don't care about anything. It's so disposable, and
Yeah,
they'll tell you straight up that it's, you
yeah,
know, it's crap or anything like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And they're customers, and
That's right.
you bought 30 seconds of their attention, or well, based on the algorithm, you need to do, if it's a 3-minute song, that you need 50%. They need 90 seconds of your attention. If you
Yeah,
can't give them that, they'll let you know that
that's right.
they're not happy about
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. No, that is right. You're absolutely right. I mean, even now when I go to India, I was just there a little while back, you know, and the people that were coming up to me that recognized me, and you know, the love, and they're talking about the songs that I done back in the day that were hit over there. The songs that I done recently, they never sort of reached that market over there. But the ones like, you know, Rana Botal Wargi, Baba Vegala were big, you know, Jatta Ke Chatiyari, you know, these 5, 6 songs that were really big over there in Punjab. You know, those people don't forget. That's how loyal they are, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're talking about 10, 15 years ago.
Mm.
And they do not forget.
Is there kind of a couple of people who you look at and that you think, oh, these guys have got the potential? Because like today, like when we recorded, like Diljit's just done Coachella, and you're like,
Massive.
look at the platform that he's taking, and that's the pathway that it doesn't matter. You can get there if you're good enough.
Yeah.
And you know, and you look at Sidhu, like what his legacy is still doing to this
Yeah.
day in terms of
Yeah.
like records and stuff. Like, there's no excuses. But like, do you kind of see a couple of individuals, where you think, or where do you think the market's going to move in the future?
Oh, with the future. You know what it is? Again, this is another good thing about the market now is that if something touches the audience now, they will just take it. Like, for example, AP, yeah, they came out of nowhere, sort of thing. They've come in and they've just taken it onto another level, right? The concerts, what they've done, the way they've done it, it's really, really amazing what they've done, right? And like, there's no history, like there wasn't no build up. They just came out in a few years. They just, like, spun this whole thing around. So this was, things like this never would have happened to that scale. You'll have someone that had a hit song, and then they'll just sort of fizzle away, or it'll take a while for them to actually get onto a certain platform. Like, for example, on a concert platform, bloody hell, that is unheard of for the time span that they've done it in, right? And and the kind of doors that Diljit's opened recent, like in the last few years in the film industry, you would never expect a Sardar, to be a lead act in such big movies, right? And then obviously doing the concerts and the kind of audiences that he's opened himself up to is absolutely amazing. That would have happened at that sort of time. So the industry is so different now. But I mean, the people that are now, I mean, there's so many different acts now. Like, there's so much going on. Like people like Shub, they've come out, a total different sound, brilliant sound, right? So it's, the market is really, it's moving and it's good. I think the market is great at the moment, because there's opportunity to do something different, and people might appreciate it, might not, but there's scope there now.
You're talking about like moving into kind of different kind of markets. You've got moved into film. How did that happen?
This was something naturally that was going to happen for me. It was just a matter of time. Like, this should have happened 10 years ago. That's how I believe it. I mean, I'm quite late in doing this. I should have done this. I've had these ideas for the last 15 odd years, and last 10 years I should have done it, right? But it's just, it's about meeting the right people, getting the right people on board and things like that. Film is quite big, because it's not like, it's going to cost you, I don't know, whatever, 10, 15 grand or 20 grand to make an album, whatever, right? This is going to cost, in, like, you're talking about millions, right? To actually make a movie, right? To make half a decent movie, right? So, that's what sort of took the time, but it was a natural progression for me, because this was what I was about. I was about visual. I was always about the visual.
But, see, the thing is, and you kind of stole my point, so which is how you invested. If you look back in terms of, like, you're doing your production, you're doing your film, your videos, like, that's why I think your social media content pops off, because it's so bloody good in terms of, like, the production of it. It's clean, the way it's shot. Like, you can obviously tell, like, there's a history. No one's just picked up a phone and just done it. I'm shit at my social media. I openly admit it. But, like, the way have you done it, because of the grind and the investment that you've done in your work early on, it's coming out to kind of fruition in that now. Whether it's, God willing, it's a massive success, from it. But you can see there's an evolution in kind of art in what you're doing.
Yeah. A funny thing about social media is that I wasn't really that sort of into it, right? Earlier on, it was just there. I was just now and then posting. I wasn't really into it. When the lockdown happened, that's when I discovered, like, TikTok and things like that, right? So I heard about it, but I wasn't really on it. And that's when I started going on, Instagram as well, more than I was. So from the lockdown is when, I started doing those comedy skits. I thought, bloody hell, we're sitting here, might as well do something, right? So we started doing a few little comedy skits. People liked those. And I started messing around with the Tumbi, and people really liked that. So now I still do that.
Have you had any mainstream artists who kind of reached out to you or kind of reposted it from like when you've done a version of it?
No, I don't think so. I'm not sure. I don't think so.
I remember
No.
someone big sharing when you did I think it was a kind of a rap one. I should have a look at that.
I think there was one I posted when we done the Snoop one. The Snoop actually looked at the story.
Yeah. That's
So
it.
it was on my story. He actually had viewed the story, so that was sort of took a screenshot of it and reposted that.
Yeah, that's big.
Yeah.
Big. So so getting into film, like, obviously you've got the cost in terms of the risk value. Then if we're managing it by risk of going into kind of millions and stuff and that, like, the way you're talking about it is so confident that you knew you should have done this from there. What? Okay, here we go. I don't watch a lot of Indian films, or like Punjabi films. I think the last one I watched was actually so that you mentioned in the 2017 interview was Diljit's 1984 film, and
Okay.
but every time when I see one of the films coming, I'm like, it's the same cast, it's the same people, like I don't, and it's just a different title, and
Yeah.
it's shot in the same. It's either Birmingham, London Bridge, and this is just my own
Yeah.
stereotypes, generalization, and I admit that. Like, how do you make sure that you don't fall into that formula? And somebody like me would be like, "Oh yeah, I need to watch this."
So first of all, I'm not even making a Punjabi film. I haven't made a Punjabi film, right? So that's the number one
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. Okay, so forget that then.
Right. So I didn't want to because I didn't want to make a Punjabi film because I was going to end up falling into that same category, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And they make it really well, right? So what they are making is like brilliant. I wouldn't be able to make my first film like that. What I'm making is a English dialogue film, right, with Punjabi families based on Punjabi things. So the story is based on families in Southall, right? So it's based on that, but the dialogue is all English.
Mm.
It's all in English. So again, it's a bigger audience. You know, we want to sort of target, you know, the non-Asian audience as well, so they can, you know, look into our, you know, they because that's what it is. You know, when like why was Goodness Gracious so great? They understood the language, but they were looking through the keyhole and looking what we're all about, right?
What the inside jokes were, and
What the inside jokes were, right? That's
yeah.
it. How they do, what they laugh about. You know, so that's the kind of approach that we had with this film. We wanted to have a audience that could look into Indian families and say, right, is that what they do? That's quite funny, or that's, you know, this
So
is, you know,
what's the timeline for that project then?
I mean, the timeline as in when it's going to be out, or
Yeah,
how
like
long
is it
to
has
make?
you already started production? Have you ever started kind of like shooting it yet? Or
No,
you
no,
still
we've
writing
shot the
for this?
film. It's all
It's
done.
all done now, so it's post production.
It's all in post production now. Right now, we're just finishing up the post production now. So once the post production done, then it's going to be out. You know, then it's going to be just that's it. We're going to have it out.
So then you gotta go and find a distributor and get it
Yeah.
done and selected cinemas and all these kind of things.
Yes.
Like how much, like it's obviously like you love a challenge in order that like you have to keep. How do you know when it? I don't know, because I'm looking at your drive. I'm like, I'm knackered hearing this story. you know, you know what I mean. So like, how do you keep going?
It's, you know, it's just it's passion. Is when you love something, it doesn't feel like it's work. You know, so even when I was shooting, people couldn't understand, right? We were shooting continuously, like for 20 odd, 15, 20 days, whatever we were shooting. And in between that, I was doing shows. So I would do it like in the daytime, I would be shooting, and it's so stressful shooting with the whole crew because it's costing so much money, directing this project, acting in this project as well. And then in the evening, going to do a show, then driving up north, do the show, come back because and not sleeping, and then be up again in the morning because if the director and the guy that's actually heading the whole thing isn't up and isn't ready to shoot, the whole team falls.
Mm.
Everybody starts falling then. So I knew that I had to be up. I had to be up again in the morning at 8 o'clock, even if I got in back at 5 o'clock in the morning. Had to be back up at 8 o'clock. You know, 7 o'clock, start getting ready, be on set for 8 o'clock, so the whole team will carry on.
So
But
with
it's
like,
passion.
yeah, no, I get it because then, like, obviously, when you see social media, you see PVs, kind of social media, you're there and you're seeing all the big kind of. Are you getting all the music directors and big stars? Are those the kind of lessons that you're learning, and when you're having those discussions at the same time of like, of one about return of investment, knowing that about how to make sure that a product is good, because
That's right.
you do hang around with kind of like people at the in the pinnacle of their professions.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you know what? I'm blessed in that sense. You know, I am blessed in that sense. I don't know how it's happened. It's just, you know, God's been kind, and it's just, you know what, it's from the inside. When you, like I said earlier on, like I'm very sort of picky and choosy of who I sit with. I want to be around positive energy. I want to learn something. You know, I want, you know, for example, like, I phoned Peter Verdi up the day before I was about to shoot, and I actually had lost my legs at that time. You know, but the first day of shooting, like I had set everything up and I actually shit myself. I thought, fuck, is this actually gonna happen? I'm actually gonna shoot a film tomorrow, and I actually shit it. I thought, shit, am I gonna, is this, I still can pull out right now and I won't lose that much money. But if I go in tomorrow and it starts, that's it. You know, I had to make a phone call, and Peter he was abroad somewhere. I don't know where he was. Like he was in New York or something. And I had to phone him and say, look, you know, Peter, look, I'm actually, you know, sorry to disturb you at this late at night, but am I doing the right thing? You know, and then he had a few minutes and chatted to me and sort of got me retuned and like focused. I thought, right, tomorrow, this is what's happening. We are going to do this. You know, so this is the blessing of having great people around you. Is that, you know, you can pick up the phone and talk to these people and get advice, and they will give you the right advice, because you know what, they don't want nothing of me. I want something of them. You know what I mean? So for them, they won't ever give me the wrong advice or put me in the wrong path, because they are only there for my well-being, or it doesn't matter to them, you know? So they were only, so it's good to have these sort of
Yeah,
people.
I actually have I had a pretty story as well, because when I got into my outside of this, I do a lot of drug and alcohol rehab and do some of the community work, and it was actually a conversation that I had with him where I said, right, I'm going to go and do a conference around drugs and alcohol for particularly for ethnic minorities and smaller communities and that. And it just came from an idea, and I thought, and that kind of spanned on. So having those kind of is ironic. It's the same kind of person where we're having that discussion where it makes those makes things happen.
Yeah.
What what does the next sort of 6 to 12, apart from the film, what does the next 6 to 18 months look like for you?
Well, the next 6 months is like we're just busy with shows now. So like it's sort of started off, and now every weekend now, like till the end of the year, like it's going to be quite hectic with shows. And in between that, obviously, we need to finish the film off, and obviously start the next one. You know, it's not like, you know, when you get into post production on a movie, you're already thinking of the next idea, and that's where I am now. I'm already thinking, right, what we're going to do next now, because if, you know, I mean, when this one comes out, we need to bam, you know, be ready for the next one. I mean, that's how fast the industry is now. You know, even with the music, look how many songs come out. Like, you know, look at the artists. How, I mean, they're just pulling songs out straight away. You know, they'll have like 10 videos, 30 songs on the album. You know, it's not a big deal anymore. And you know, before, I remember the times when you used to look forward to a Safri album that's going to come out, Apna Sangeet albums coming out, and did you ever notice that they would never clash? They would always be spaced out.
They were
Every
always very respectful of timelines in it.
Yeah,
Because they were in the inlay, they already told people it's coming out at this time, so
that's
people
right.
already had an idea of when it was
Yeah.
going to be.
So it was never that you would have two albums that came out at the same time. Malkeith would release his one, then it'll give it a couple of months, and then somebody else would release it. But those songs, the funny thing was, those albums, you would not get bored of them for a whole year at least. Now, as soon as you watch the video, you're bored of it, you're on to the next, you will never watch it again. Things are so fast now.
It's
And those
so
ones used to
disposable,
repeat.
so disposable.
So disposable. You know, I used to save up my like dinner money to go and buy the album. You know, you want to get the cassette and then sit down and listen to it. No, you would make those couple of quid worth, you know, the whole year. You would say, mate, I'm
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
finish this
It's
out.
like you haven't eaten to say to listen to some of those,
That's
mate. You
right.
know what I mean?
That's a big deal, man.
Yeah, yeah. I remember I did that with so mad because like I've got it right here, but like this is obviously I did it with one of the first that was enough vibes in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I was like Apache, and then like Apache gave me this one, yeah. He
Wow.
released it, and he's like he signed it, and I was like complete circle. But the real album that I remember going absolutely ballistic over was 100% Proof Punjabi MC.
Yeah.
That one I bought that and Grassroots. I bought
Grassroots was this amazing.
100% Proof. I bought that 5-6
Both of
times
those
easy,
albums. Yeah.
easy man, and it was
Big.
just next level. What a geezer! I'm gonna try and get him on, but I'm gonna get the timing right to get him on.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is called the Bhandwagon. So any guest that comes on, I give them an opportunity to either jump on a bandwagon or jump off a bandwagon, or
Okay.
generally, if there's anything that they want to get off their chest, this is the space to do so. So this is your space.
Oh wow! I mean, the one of the key points that I made earlier is that, you know, because I was talking about this with some of the other artists, like what we said about the TV stations, the radio stations, yeah, not supporting us at that time when we really needed them. You know, I mean, they were supporting, but I don't know if it was the financial sort of side of things, or people like, you know, I don't know what it was, you know, and you know, the time that we're in now, like I said before, I would even say to any other artists, you know, that are coming out, build your platforms, build your own platforms. Yeah, don't rely on anybody. Don't because you'll get lost. You'll get lost. You know, if you start relying on like stations and this, that, whatnot, and you think that they're the ones that are gonna make it hit for you or make you what you want to be, it's not gonna work. You need to make yourself and study your art. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that are hit now that really, you know, when you put them in a situation where to sing live or to sing like this, they can't really do it, right? And it's quite disheartening. You think, you know, you've been so blessed to be, you know, that you've got the stage. You know, you've been blessed that you've been put on the stage but there's no respect for the art. So always
Yeah,
respect your art.
there's a lot of artists like that where you see you got the fan base, you got the follows, you got your Instagram, you got the visuals. It looks great, but when the actual time comes to sing a song at a wedding, you sound terrible.
Yeah. And this is something I learned from, you know, respect for your art. Going back to that, this is something I learned by sitting with people like Gurdas man. By people sitting like, you know, with the great Indian dancers, the respect, you know, we never drink before we go on stage. We you know, we bless the stage before we go. And, you know, we take pride in what we're going to wear, you know, and the way, and before the show, you know, how we're going to be and the mindset that we're going to be in before. Hand, you know, we don't want those kind of people around us. We don't want people smoking or drinking around us, you know, at that sort of time, because it's for us, it's like praying, you know, it's like it's God. And you know, obviously people are going to take it the other way. Oh yeah, there's alcohol there, this that, but that's what's there, that's what we're in. But it's not for us. Like I would never go on stage drinking or be drunk or drink on stage or whatever, you know, because I'll feel that I'm disrespecting my art. I would never leave my instrument in my car overnight. I would never, you know, my instrument's always with me, you know, things like that. There's certain things, you know, we respect the art, you know, that this is why it's giving back. The art is giving back. Is whether I'm a hit or not, I'm survived over 20 odd years, you know, in this industry, and that's all I've done. I've never done no 9 to 5. I've never done anything else. Straight away when I came out of university, I went to work for Kuljit Bhamras, and since then I've been in the studio game. You know, that's because I respect my art. I believe in it. I trust it to give it back to me. You know, it'll give something back to me, and it is giving back to me. So that's what I would just really, really urge people that are coming into this industry, you know, respect the elders as well. You know, like, you know what it is? I've just seen some young people. You know, like there's some senior artists, right? Even if they're not currently a hit now, you've got to respect that they are senior and they are, you know, because of them, we are doing what we're doing now. Right. And I've been to certain shows where this crowd's coming up to me and, you know, I said, look, the senior artists here, let them come. Oh, no, don't worry about him. Okay, that was back in the day. Bro, you know, this is quite, you know, it's really, really heartbreaking because, you know what, tomorrow I might be that senior artist. You know what I mean? And we've lost that. We're losing that respect for artists now. Right. We're losing that. And that's something that we, you know, that's not talked about. You know, it's not thing. You know, we need to respect these artists that have paved the way for us. I mean, we are the first British-born singers, right? Like my generation, you know, we can say like B21 and Zeus and, you know, Punjabi MC. You know, we're all born over here in the UK, and then trying to promote Punjabi music. You know, we're still trying to promote what, you know, and it was a bit easier for the guys that when they first came because they were born in that, so they understood it more than us. We had to learn that sitting here. We had to learn what's right and what's wrong, and now we're losing that. You know, so it's quite, you know, it's quite heartbreaking. But I would always say, you know, respect our senior artists. You know, whenever you see one of the artists, anybody that's in the music game that have been there, that whether it's big or small, you know, respect them. You know, I would say that to artists in themselves. Respect, you know, the guys that have come from before us. You know, touch their feet, give them the seat, get up from your bloody seat, let them sit down. They deserve that. You know.
100%, and it's one of the reasons why I wanted to get into this podcast is to get their stories down and documented it down as best as I could for me.
You're doing a great job, man.
Because if we can't hear them, then a lot of the journey, that energy and how people are eating roti based on their hard work as well, because they never got any rights, they never got views, they never got a lot of money. They would have full-time jobs, and balancing family and doing it.
That's
They
it.
tried the best that they could.
And the
some
hits that
failed.
they made, at that time is impossible even to do now. If it was equivalent to now, you would be, they sold physical copies in the thousands, in the 100,000s. That is amazing.
Well, 80% of a playlist at a wedding is something of 20 years plus.
Yeah.
Songs.
Yeah.
Which tells it, which is crazy. They won't ever see that revenue back.
Yeah. That's right. They made good money. They made great music, man, and they made great moves. And they actually, they made this industry. If it wasn't for them, God knows even if we would be here talking. If they never started such a big revolution over here.
We do really appreciate you taking time. I know it's a rare interview and it's very hard to kind of pin it down, but I really appreciate it. But I've got you on a schedule now, so when you're releasing those films, I've got to get you back on.
No, 100%. Thank you so much. That'd be a pleasure, man. It's been great talking to you. It's been really nice.
Thanks, you, bro.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much.